You know, in our high-tech world, we've got all this incredible gear, advanced radar, satellite navigation, you name it. But what if one of the most important tools for preventing a total disaster at sea is also one of the oldest? Today, we're talking about why something as simple as a ship's whistle is still so critical and what happens when that sound is replaced by a deadly silence. Okay, let's set the scene. It's June 23rd, 2013, off the coast of Japan. You have the NOCC Oceanic, this absolute beast of a car carrier, 12 decks high, just powering through the ocean on its way to Panama. And out there in the same water, there's the Yujin Maru No. 7, a tuna fishing boat, heading out to its fishing grounds. The problem? They're on a collision course, and neither of them has a clue. And this is the part of the story that is just bone-chilling. When these two ships met, the impact was absolutely catastrophic for the smaller vessel, and completely, utterly unnoticed by the other. The giant carrier just kept on sailing, totally oblivious, leaving a tragedy behind it that would take hours to even discover. So let's just walk through how this nightmare unfolds. At 9:15 in the morning, the rain starts coming down hard. By 9:33, the NOCC Oceanic sails straight into a heavy squall. Visibility drops to pretty much zero. Then, just 11 minutes later, at 9:44, the ship's data recorder picks up a loud 3-second noise. That was the sound of the collision. It isn't until almost 2 hours later that anyone even picks up a distress signal. By 1:45 that afternoon, 8 crewmen are found floating in a life raft. The master of the Yujin Maru, he was never seen again. So that brings us to the big question, right? How, with all our modern gadgets, in the middle of the ocean, does something like this even happen? Well, the answer is hiding in a set of rules that are as old as steamships, and a very modern and very dangerous reluctance to actually use them. To really get what went wrong here, we first have to understand what should have happened. You see, every sealer on the planet, no matter what flag they're flying, operates under one universal rulebook for staying safe. They're called the COLREGs. Think of the COLREGs as the official rules of the road for the sea. They were set up back in 1972, and their only job is to make shipping is predictable and safe. They lay out exactly what every vessel is supposed to do, whether it's a perfectly clear day or the thickest fog you've ever seen. And the rules are not shy about who's responsible. Rule 2 makes it crystal clear. If you ignore these rules, you can't blame the weather, you can't blame the equipment, you can't blame anything. The consequences land squarely on you, your ship, and your company. No excuses, period. So what does following the rules actually sound like? Let's step away from this disaster for a second and imagine we're on a professional, well-run ship as the weather starts to turn. On a bridge like that, the conversation is always about getting ahead of the problem. That's the kind of question a responsible captain asks. It's not just about what you can see, it's about making sure you can be heard. As the visibility gets worse, sound becomes one of your most important tools for not hitting things. And the COLREGs have a very specific language for it. Now, this language of the horn is surprisingly simple. It's built from just 2 basic sounds, or 2 words defined in Rule 32. You've got a short blast, that's a quick 1-second toot, and a prolonged blast, a longer 4 to 6 second sound. And from just those 2 sounds, ships can have a whole conversation. For example, Rule 34 is for when ships can see each other. It's just beautifully simple. 1 short blast means, hey, I'm turning to my right. 2 short blasts, I'm turning to my left. 3 short blasts, I'm putting my engines in reverse. It's clear, simple, and everyone knows what it means. But for our story, the most important rule of all is Rule 35. This is for when visibility is bad. The rule is simple. If you can't see, you have to make noise. If you're a ship moving through the water, you have to sound 1 long blast every 2 minutes. If you're stopped, it's 2 long blasts. It's a constant broadcast saying, I am here and here's what I'm doing. And this isn't optional, by the way. Rule 33 says ships have to carry this equipment. The bigger the ship, the more noisemakers you need. For a huge vessel like the NOCC Oceanic, that means having a whistle, a bell, and a gong all ready to go. Okay, so now that we know the rules of the road, now that we speak the language of the horn, we can go back to that rainy morning in the Pacific and see exactly where things went so terribly wrong. The rules are designed to be simple, especially under pressure. Their failure wasn't in how they were written, it was in how they were used, or, in this case, not used. This collision wasn't bad luck. It was the final link in a chain of human errors. So let's break it down. The third officer on watch didn't slow down in the storm, a basic seamanship mistake. He didn't call the captain when visibility vanished, a direct violation of his orders. But the biggest failure, the one that sealed their fate, was that he never once sounded the ship's whistle. He never made that single prolonged blast required by Rule 35, the signal designed for exactly that situation. Instead, he was glued to his screens, a radar that wasn't tuned properly to see through the rain, and an AIS system that couldn't see the fishing boat because it didn't have a transmitter. But here's the thing. The blame wasn't all on one side. On the Yujin Maru, the lookout was standing in a spot with huge blind spots. And get this, the master wouldn't let his crew use their own radar, so they were relying only on their eyes in the middle of a torrential downpour. Both ships were effectively sailing blind and death. Just think, if either vessel had been sounding that simple fog signal, the other might have heard them and had enough time to avoid the disaster. The story of the NOCC Oceanic is a tragic one, but it's such a powerful reminder. In an age where we are just obsessed with technology, it's so easy to forget the value of these fundamental, time-tested basics.
The official accident report absolutely nails it. It points to a really dangerous trend, that officers on watch are becoming, reluctant to use sound signals. And why is that? Because they feel safe, tucked behind their glowing electronic screens.
Look, radar and AIS are amazing tools. They've made the seas safer than ever, but relying on them too much creates this false sense of security. It's a kind of complacency, where an officer thinks they can see everything on their screen, when in reality a small boat or a ship without a signal might be completely invisible.
At the end of the day, technology is just one tool in the toolbox. Good seamanship demands that you use all available means to stay safe. That includes looking with your own eyes and, just as important, listening with your own ears. A simple blast from a ship's horn can cut through rain and fog in a way that no electronic signal ever could. It's a fundamental and critical layer of safety. The technology on our ship's bridges is only going to get more advanced. The screens will get brighter, the data more detailed. But the story of the NOCC Oceanic really forces us to ask a tough question. In this age of screens, as we get better and better at looking, are we forgetting how to listen?